Match of the year contenders everywhere this weekend. Hello and welcome to FTTR. I am Hugh McQueen and today we are talking about NXT, the Great American Bash 2023, the latest premium live event from the Black and Gold brand. But before we dive into that, please subscribe, please like this video, please comment your thoughts on the Great American Bash down in the comments below and I'll try and reply to every single one of them as we dive in to this show. So the Great American Bash for me was anticipated. I was quite excited for this following NXT Battleground, which remains one of my favourite shows of the year. I absolutely adored that show. I thought it was fantastic, near enough from top to bottom. So the hype for NXT Great American Bash was there for me. However, I feel like this show underdelivered for me, to be honest. Now, I know I opened the video by saying how there were Match of the Year contenders, and yes, there was one Match of the Year contender, I think, on this show, the main event, which was goddamn fantastic, but the rest of the show, I felt, had some questionable decisions and wasn't blow away magnificent with the talent that are involved. So, we'll dive straight into that. We'll dive into the show. This is my review where I give you the recap of the angles, the matches, everything that happened in the show, starting with the video package, the opening video package paying tribute to Dusty Rhodes, with Cody Rhodes doing like the voiceover and the video package opening. Really cool stuff. And then we jump straight into the opening match, which was a tag team match with Gallus taking on Tony D'Angelo and Channing Stacks Lorenzo. This was not how I would have opened the show. To be honest, I'm not fully invested in Gallus. They were always one of my least favourite parts of NXT UK, and the Tony D'Angelo Stacks thing just doesn't click with me. They feel like remnants of an old NXT, the 2.0 NXT. They don't feel... It feels weird. It feels weird and out of place, the sort of mobster Don thing for me on a card that doesn't really have like goofiness like that. I'm trying to think of, like, maybe the Chase U stuff is goofy, but it's not. There's something about the Tony D'Angelo stick that just doesn't sit right with me. And I thought this tag match was pretty much by the numbers. There was nothing really to write home about. There were a few nice spots. I really liked powerbomb from D'Angelo, powerbombing, I think it was Mark Coffey into Wolfgang by the steel steps. I thought that was really cool. Both teams did some tremendous dives here and there, but it was mainly just Stacks got worked over the majority of it by Gallus, and then D'Angelo made a hot tag, and he was the alpha, the guy who was making the hot tag, and they did that, and that was essentially all the match came down to. There was a little bit of interference from Joe Coffey on the outside where he tried to get involved, tried to give a weapon to Gallus to use. That backfired, and Tony D'Angelo managed to clock Joe Coffey with a crowbar, and then that led to the finish, which was hitting the bada bing bada boom. It's like a jump, it's sort of like a tossing back suplex. They hit that and picked up the win, and we have new NXT Tag Team Champions in Tony D'Angelo and Stacks. Fair enough. It seems like they're really behind D'Angelo and Stacks, but for me, it's just not there. And I think one of the weaker elements of NXT at the moment is the tag division for me, considering they used to have like a booming tag division. It now feels a little bit thin and a little bit stale. I'm not here for the NXT tag division. This was an okay match, but it wasn't how I would have started the show. Then we got Roxanne Perez taking on Blair Davenport in a weapons wild match. I don't know why they couldn't have just called it a no disqualification match. It could have been done. This sort of picked up a little bit. I thought this was really fun, particularly Blair Davenport. I love Blair Davenport, previously Bea Priestley, and she was fantastic in this, going after Perez's family who were sat ringside and just working over Perez. And that was the majority of the start of the match, was Perez would try to make some offense and she would get shut down immediately by the power of Priestley, who would lay in shots with steel chairs. And Davenport did the thing. She made a child cry. It looked like she made Roxanne Perez's sister cry. Fair enough, channeling that Sasha Banks energy. And I really, really loved just the fire of Roxanne Perez. Perez is so likable as a babyface that when she comes back and makes that eventual comeback and lays into Davenport, it's so cathartic. It's so cathartic, and she's so likable. It got a little bit sloppy here and there towards the end when they were trying to do the table spot, and the dive from the top wasn't really a dive, it was more of a fall. So Perez sort of splashed Davenport through a table on the outside, but didn't get much air. It just sort of fell. That looked a bit weird, but I really liked the finish, and that was Perez hitting the what's it called? Pop rocks onto some steel chairs, taking out Davenport. 1, 2, 3. Cathartic victory for Roxanne Perez. Hopefully she strives more towards the Women's Championship, and hopefully Blair Davenport can as well, because I think she's absolutely fantastic. This was a good match, a really good match, and I think the crowd were really into Perez as well. It was in her hometown state. I think it was in Texas. I don't know if it was necessarily her hometown, but it was in Texas. So it was in her home state. Really good. Really enjoyed this one. Then we've got a big old woof. What is going on here when Gable Steveson took on Baron Corbin? Baron Corbin, credit to him, looks terrific. His music is fire. It's really, really sick new music that Corbin's got. And I think he looks really cool. The new look for Corbin is great. The issue with this match was the crowd did not like Gable Steveson, who I believe, I don't watch NXT week to week, but I'm just going to naturally assume, because he's going up against Baron Corbin, Steveson is supposed to be a babyface. And my God, they were not into Steveson. They were very into Baron Corbin. Let's go I don't think I've heard a Let's Go Corbin chant in my life, but there was a Let's Go Corbin chant numerous times throughout this match. And this was just boring, unfortunately. And I do like Baron Corbin. I think Baron Corbin has an awesome set of moves that he didn't really get to hit in this match. It was just a lot of clubbing blows and a few suplexes from Steveson, and then ultimately it ends in a double count out, which was naff. A naff double count out, which didn't get the fans riled up, didn't get me riled up, and didn't want to make me see a rematch either. Sure, they did a post-match brawl, and some things were... It was a post-match brawl. There's not much to say about it or write home about it, and I don't think Gable Steveson had a great debut for your first match. I don't know if that is necessarily how you want your first match to go. It's in no way comparable to Logan Paul, Bad Bunny, Ronda Rousey. They all had terrific debut matches. This was, I'm going to say actively bad, this. And I want to see a bit more from Corbin in NXT. I don't want him to be stuck in the I'm going to face all the new people role. I think there is worth in sort of probably a title run for Corbin, whether it be the NXT Championship and whether it be the North American Championship. I think there's a lot to do with Corbin in NXT, and I hope he doesn't get stuck in this role. This was the worst thing on the show for me, hands down. Then we got a backstage brawl with Lyra Valkyrie taking on JC Jane. They brawled. They're going to have a match on NXT this week. And then we got the match for the NXT North American Championship as Wesley took on Mustafa Ali and the champion Dominic Mysterio. This was, again, I think it's a detriment to this match that it has come after Battleground, because I thought the NXT North American Championship triple threat at Battleground was awesome. I thought it was sick. This match was okay. It was okay. It played out sort of exactly how I expected, and that was both of the good guys, both the babyfaces, ganged up on Dominic Mysterio. There was a lot of interference from Rhea Ripley, and Dominic would get the upper hand when the other two were brawling with each other because they both want to beat up Dominic, and that's essentially how the match played out. There were some really cool spots in here, though, like a dive from Wesley over Rhea Ripley, hitting Dominic Mysterio. I thought that looked really good. Mustafa Ali taking a nasty, nasty bump by doing a 450 to the apron and missing. He looked like he caved his skull in. That was really nasty. But one of the highlights was someone who wasn't even in the match. I thought Rhea Ripley was excellent in this match, and she played up her, dominant persona to perfection, especially when she hits a riptide on Wesley through the announce table, which just looked amazing. So Wesley's taken out. He's ready to be taken down by Mustafa Ali. Mustafa Ali comes in, hits Dominic off the top rope, but Dominic falls. He hooks his leg, and just as Mustafa Ali hits the 450 on Wesley, Rhea Ripley pulls him out. Dominic Mysterio hits a frog splash on Wesley and retains the North American Championship. I think it's good having the NXT North American Championship on Dominic, but my issue with it does feel very main roster heavy. That was sort of one of the things I felt a lot with this show, is that it didn't necessarily feel as NXT as Battleground did. Now that sounds weird, but this felt like it had been injected a lot with sort of main roster energy, main roster finishes and contrivances, and it just, something about this felt very main roster. It didn't feel as fast paced as I thought it would be, if that makes sense. But I thought this was a fun triple threat. It wasn't nowhere near as good as the one at the previous show, but it was enjoyable nonetheless. Next up, we got Thea Hale taking on Tiffany Stratton in a submission match for the NXT Women's Championship. This is another one that sort of didn't click for me. I thought this was just okay at best. I liked the chemistry between the two. I thought they did have a good chemistry, and I liked the way they were working the submission step. It's been a while since I've seen a full-on submission match, but it just didn't click, didn't vibe well for me. Obviously, the babyface did have people in her corner. Tiffany Stratton's by herself. She's the heel, so the dynamics were a little bit off there. Granted, they didn't interfere, but they were definitely running like calls and stuff like that, like Chase U do. And I don't know, I just thought this just didn't click. I can't tell you many memorable spots from this match, or many moments where I bought into the fact that Tiffany Stratton might lose, and I don't know if that's detriment to how Thea Hale has been booked, but it just didn't feel significant to me. And the finish eventually, I like the finish. I think the finish is cool, reminiscent of the finish to the infamous tag match between Undisputed Era and Mustache Mountain. Tiffany Stratton hits her, what do you call it? Prettiest moonsault ever. The PME. Yeah, the PME. Hits the PME and then locks in a Boston Crab. The Boston Crab gets a little bit sloppy in the middle, but eventually she transitions it into a single leg crab with a knee on Thea Hale's back, and the towel gets thrown in by Chase U. I think that's interesting. I think that's interesting to see where we spin that off to. The match itself just I didn't vibe with, and I thought it was just okay. Really good finish to an okay match on an okay show. And then we had the main event. The main event saw Ilja Dragunov taking on Carmelo Hayes for the NXT Championship in what was a certified banger. This was tremendous. One of my favourite matches of the year. It only got better and better. I thought it started off a little bit slow, but my God, these guys worked into each other terrifically and just laid in chops and hard moves and kicks to make it feel like a goddamn fight. And this really built up to that main event level that I remember from NXT takeovers. This was non-stop, just war. And some of the spots that I really loved, the one that will be gift / posted the most is the coast to coast, in which Carmelo Hayes reverses into a code breaker, and then from that goes to hit his leg drop and gets caught in a powerbomb. That is just all in about 20 seconds. That was all fantastic stuff. You had Ilja Dragunov going for a superplex and getting reversed into a cutter from Carmelo right from the top rope, which looked nasty. Absolutely nasty. And it just escalated. Carmelo Hayes doing it. I don't know what move it is, but he does the Hurricane Rana spin round and then just face plants people. I don't know what it's called, but it looks amazing. And yeah, from there we got a really interesting finish. So both men roll to the outside because they are exhausted after a really close near fall from on Ilja. They both roll to the outside, and Trick Williams has the title in his hand. He's trying to hype up Carmelo to get him back in the ring, and Ilja dives off the steps, hits Trick Williams, but as it's pointed out later in commentary, they think he went headfirst into the belt, into the NXT Championship belt, which managed to give Carmelo Hayes enough time to roll Ilja into the ring, hit his diving leg drop, and pick up the win. It was a tremendous, tremendous match that I absolutely loved. This is the match that I think you should go out of your way to see if you are interested in watching this show, because this was tear the house down good. It got multiple This Is Awesome chants, and I just absolutely loved it. I loved it. Ilja's on fire with these NXT matches. First is one with Dijak, and now this. Fantastic main event. Utterly tremendous main event that capped off the show. Overall, I think NXT Great American Bash was okay. It was okay. It was a nice lean show. It was under 2.5 hours just. So it didn't feel like a chore, but at the same time, I don't think the quality of the wrestling necessarily got me invested. It's a step down from NXT Battleground, which is what I now hold this new NXT to. That is sort of my bar of NXT premium live events is NXT Battleground. So it's a hard thing to beat. But at the same time, I feel like it could have been a bit more interesting, a little bit more flavour in there. Overall, I give this a 2.75 out of 5. That might be a bit harsh, but that's the score I'm going with. The main event's tremendous. The rest of the show was but I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. Did you love this show? Did you hate this show? Let me know everything you want down below, and I'll try and apply to every single one of them. Thank you all ever so much for your support, and have a nice day.